your materials design, the different way that you set about it is that when I write CLIL materials, whether they're soft or hard, even if it's for the English language curriculum, I still try to make those materials look as though the objectives are conceptual and procedural. Mm-hmm. We've talked about these 3 content dimensions.
Yes.
I don't always want my English language materials to look like English language materials. Mm-hmm. They look as if they've got conceptual objectives. Well, they actually have got conceptual objectives. Mm-hmm. And I do believe actually that you can assess content in a language curriculum. And as you said before, you can still use the language as the vehicle. Mm-hmm. The problem is in the language curriculum, it's the other way around. The content is being used as a vehicle for the language objective. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be problematic. I think it can be quite boring for the students. Mm-hmm. They realise that the content is not important. It's only there as a slave for the linguistic objective.
So you mean that it is the opposite?
Yes, I think it's the opposite.
ESL text, the content is a vehicle and language is kind of dominant.
No, that's right, yeah, the content is the vehicle, absolutely. But it's a problem. If the content is the vehicle, it's a problem because, for 3 pages you're going to talk about global warming, but you're not really interested in global warming, you're only interested in the second conditional. And little by little the students realise this, so they realise the content isn't actually important. So what do we talk about in English language lessons or whatever? We don't talk about very much really. We're concerned with not only grammatical accuracy and language accuracy, we're also just, our only objective is really the learning of the language. It's a strange objective to have, Chiharu. I don't understand why people would only have a language objective.
I understand, actually that curiosity, that students' curiosity or pupils' curiosity to the content is a kind of the priority in CLIL.
That's right. Yeah, I think you try to exploit that. Obviously, if you're doing physics or something through English, then at some point you will have to do Einstein and you will have to do the theory of relativity in another language. Well, then it comes down to task design. But yeah, as you say, that might not be interesting to many students. So you have to try and manipulate the task design to make it interesting to a student on a Friday afternoon, if that is possible.
Yeah,
but your priority is not linguistic. The language is the vehicle.
In my if I use my own words, it seems that some English ESL writers try to hide their intention to teach language.
Yes.
They
of course
give some context, but their intention is kind of really clear that they want to teach language more than content. So students know writer's intention, and so sometimes students lose their interest in working more.
I think there's another point, Chiharu, which from what you say there, I think that also English language texts look for texts which have the language that they want to teach. So if they want to teach the second conditional, they'll find texts that have the second conditional. It's a very strange way of doing it. What happens in CLIL is that you create the necessity for the language by the conceptual and the procedural objective. So if you have to save the world, and you're the president of the world, I would have less carbon emissions, I would not cut trees down. You require the conditional in order to do it. So the discourse comes out of the requirement. So in all subject teaching, that's the case. If you're doing biology and you're having to experiment and you're having to dissect a rat, then you need dissectional language. There is something called the discourse of dissection. You need it because you've got to dissect the rat. In language teaching, it's just the other way around. You pretend that you're not going to dissect a rat. You might have that in the text. But, so the importance in CLIL, and I think this comes back to your question, is that you design the materials, but you design them from a conceptual and procedural objective in which the discourse arises naturally. So you have to differentiate between the planets. You're going to need differentiation language.
So it means that sometimes that second language, we have some findings in second language acquisition, right?
Yes.
So sometimes the CLIL's way of teaching might be opposite, or might not be the same.
Now, what you're saying is
that agreement.
What you're saying is that if a 12-year-old requires the third conditional in order to do something in CLIL, then they require the third conditional. That's it. In a language course, you won't do the third conditional until you get to upper intermediate. But in Kill, you throw them in the swimming pool at the deep end, that's what I said, and they have to cope with that third conditional, but you have to design your task so they can cope with it. I don't believe in delaying language simply because it's a language curriculum. Language curricula delay the introduction of certain types of language, which is a very strange idea actually. It's a very strange idea, I'm sorry. But anyway, I think it's strange. you don't delay that in Kill, you can't. You can't. Because if the theory of relativity requires X language, you have to face that language. And that's, I think, what's interesting about Kill.
I understand the difference.